What's up, everybody? It's your favorite Apes Together Strong! It's favorite nerd, and today we are looking at the Generation Toy Gorilla, which is their take on an Optimus Primal type character, but with a more robotic vibe as opposed to the kind of synthetic flesh vibe, which I think is cool. I'm actually really looking forward to looking at this figure because I think the design is awesome. I think had this been the design for Beast Wars, I would have been more likely to get into it. That being said, it's on loan to me from Robert D. I got a couple interesting things to talk about in the final thoughts. I'm generally a fan of Generation Toys products, at least when it comes to individual releases. So let's go ahead and get started. Two identical swords, or swords rather, with tons of attention to detail. We got this translucent yellow as like a gem inside the hilt. We have the silver painted on the blade, another gunmetal painted on the bottom of the blade, and the straight blue plastic. And he can hold all these just fine, and then there's places for him to peg in and such, as you might imagine. But the cool thing is you can take the blades off and then install them into this bit of business, and then have this like ultra mega sort of Darth Maul-ish double-bladed lightsaber sort of effect, which I think is also pretty cool and visually interesting. So let's take a look at the figure. The head is on a hinge swivel. The hinge allows the head to go far up, so to speak, but it does break up the mold. And then you can put it down, though, which is more important, especially for a bot of this size. It's more important that he look down at you, so that's good. Blue metallic fleck plastic for the helmet, and then we have the silver paint and gold paint on the ears, and then the white paint, I think, applied to the face mask. The eyes look dead. There is a light up feature. The batteries aren't installed, but you know there is a light up feature, so he can see you, but maybe he won't speak. Maybe he don't with you anyway. And then we have this gun here. It's on a hinge on both sides, so you can get it up out of the way. You can also remove the backpack, which is like the Brat Pack, only not spelled the same nor pronounced the same and doesn't mean the same thing. But the backpack can be removed. You can swivel these underneath. I need a rubber band on my wrist every time Anyway, and then you can have a hinge down here to have them in kind of gun mode. The chest, tons of detail. We have a translucent piece here. We have some red paint, silver paint, gold paint, blue paint. This is like a metal. It's not chrome, but just like a metal look. Like there's a lot of detail. Silver paint here, red paint there. No issues. Waist swivel, ab crunch that's ratcheted. There is a lot of ratchets here. They're not necessarily the strongest ratchets, but they should hold the pose, which is the purpose of them. I think that sometimes people get upset when, because you can do this and these ratchets can't support the whole upper body of the figure just on one, or, to be fair, on two. But what matters is once you put it in a pose, will the ratchets hold the pose and not put wear on the joints? And I haven't had any trouble with that. Swivel here, and then we have universal joints for the shoulders, ratcheted both ways, forward and out, and then this piece hinges separately on it. Red paint, gold paint, silver paint, no issues. There's also a butterfly joint on a swivel there, all good. Bicep swivel, black and red paint and more red paint. Single hinged elbow, also ratcheted, gets you 90 degrees. We got silver paint, red paint. This is red plastic and blue plastic. Then the hands, ball pegged fingers, which is okay for a thumb. I just put it at a weird angle. I will say there is some stuff on this guy that does pop off as you manipulate it, especially under the purposes of a review, but for individual use, I think you should be fine. Swivel for the hand, and then there is a little bit of hinge in out there, which is nice as well. Thumb is on a base pen knuckle. A thumb is on a ball peg, and then it has the knuckle at a pin. The other fingers are on a base pen knuckle, and then individual pins for the second and third knuckle. You can get the fingers straight, but they do look a little weird, but I think that helps with the ape mode, so I'm forgiving of that. All right, same for the other side. Universal joints for the hips. There is one inconsistent ratchet here. This one, much tighter than that one. That's probably an individual, results will vary, but it does get you the full Van Damme and the full Monty, so no issues there. We have a thigh swivel. It is minor, but I'm okay with minor thigh swivels. We don't really have them in real life, so I'm good with it. And then we have a double hinge knee, both ratcheted, and that's in the extended position. And then we have the ankles. I think this piece is die cast here with an ankle tilt down. This isn't a working piston, but the piston is attached to this piece, which does slide, as you'll see here with the ankle tilt up. And then we have a slightest bit of a rock. I mean, it's a significant rocker, but as you'll see later on in some of the poses, it's better to have the rocker maybe a little bit more articulation there. It does end up being limiting. Then we have some silver paint on the knee joint. I love when they put paint on the joints. It's something that people rarely do, and I think it's a little bit of added effort that I enjoy. And then we have silver paint here, there, and then gold and silver paint, and then silver paint on the feet. These are the monkey paws, but you can flip them out for a heel spur if you need some extra balance. And the back of the figure cleans up extremely well. We have silver paint and gold paint on the backpack. Pretty good. Let's get him transformed. Unpeg the red flap from the elbow. I suggest pulling against to this space to extend the forearm on a double hinge, locking that back into position, rotating the shoulder down, and then moving the forearm into the ape kind of anatomic position. Do the same for the other side. Now you want to open up the backpack the same way I pretty much showed you before. Open up these flaps here. Open up these side portions. There is a bit of a clearance issue here. Just rotate it around. Pull this whole section up and away. You can pull these guns up and then move the back of the ape or gorilla head onto the back of Optimus Prime's head. For the front, this piece can be a little ornery. So get some sort of tool if you need to unpeg it from those two pegs, and you can just bring this down and out of the way. Then you can bring the ape face out and spin it around. Put the top of the ape head into position, and then put the ape head down. So then you want to move this out of the way, and you got to get this middle piece out, which is a bit of a pain. Once again, I'm going to rely on a tool because we all know that my fingers aren't the daintiest. Got it. So at this point, you want to rotate this piece up, this piece to the side, and this piece around to the front, and then you can put that all into position and rotate the waist 180. Back on the backpack, you want to take these pieces and extend them on double hinges on both sides, and take this flap and extend that. And you'll want to get this in a position where this piece can come down, lock into position, and these two, actually, I think you're supposed to have these guns in as well, but theoretically you could have them in or out. Let me back out the camera a little bit. But you can have the guns in or out, I would imagine. And you're going to collapse that, bring these pieces around, and they'll clip into the sides, and then bring these pieces up, and they'll snap back into position where they once were located in, and that will peg in as well. This can be another challenge for the not so dainty fingered individual. Lift up this flap here, and you want to poke this piece forward. It's not much, it's just a little bit. It collapses a taste, and I may have pushed it too far, but usually it sits collapsed. Rotate it around so that it sits forward. Bring this piece and tuck it in, which will allow you to put the leg in a position where it totally collapses. And I think it even there. Let's show it again because it's worth showing. So flip this up. You'll see this little silver flap. I'm going to try to poke it so you can see it from this side. There you go. You want to straighten that out. Then bend this piece in, which will allow you to rotate both joints down so that they collapse into one another. Rotate the toes out at the bottom of the foot. Rotate the feet, the robot feet in, and that feels die cast to me. And then on the back, you can open up these flaps here, extend this, collapse it even further, push it down. Same for this side, open up the flaps. There's a little bit of gap there. You can close her up, push this down, and then the last final step is to take this piece, extend it up from the pelvis, and lock that into position on it. And that to me, well, we'll get there. Let's do it. And there he is. And I think he's pretty cool. I like the sculpt work. I like all the line work. All the details still come through. I think my only issue is that this piece feels a little unfinished, like the belly. Maybe if this would have been silver to match that. But I mean, it's such a nitpick. I mean, it really is well done. You know, and they continue to impress me with their engineering. This one is a little bit more frustrating than some of their other stuff because there's so many small moving pieces for kind of a large-handed fella like myself. But, you know, I still think it's a impressive undertaking and a lot of interesting and unique ideas for problem solving of where to get pieces to kind of tuck away and go away. Obviously, you can get the guns to come out on the shoulders if you'd like. Plus, the monkey mouth moves, which is pretty awesome. But nevertheless, a pretty intimidating gorilla. The only problem is, if I were to buy him, what shelf would he go on? Definitely not.
I'm actually not entirely mad at that. Somehow it makes sense to me, but still not quite right.
Now we're talking. Size comparison-wise, there he is with MP10. I'm going to straighten out the camera a little bit so you can see. Slightly shorter, but I think he'll stand in just fine. Final thoughts-wise, let's talk about the negatives. I do have a few. They are fairly minor. One of them is I would have liked for a little bit more ankle rocker. This guy has great articulation across the board, but because of that limited ankle rocker, there's a tendency to stick out when you're going for a more extreme pose. Let's get his gun out of his face, so to speak. Now, I heard that Ben from Ben's Collectibles thought that the plastic felt thin. I don't feel that necessarily. However, I have to admit there are some dainty pieces, and some of those do feel thin. Some of the stuff that covers up behind the knee, the little flap that covers down on the neck of the gorilla. So that's worth noting. I also think that there is some build issues here, and the build issues aren't with the design of the figure. They're with the literal putting together of the figure. While manipulating it and messing with it and taking pictures and stuff, I did have these like die-cast bolts fall out of the side of his head, at least one I had to put back in place. This spin piece that turns into the face of the gorilla came off. It's on the C-clip. Little stuff like that. I did have those issues, but they were extremely minor. But definitely worth noting. I haven't seen his review, so I can't speak for it, but I don't feel like the plastic in general feels thin. I feel like he's actually a pretty beefy figure. However, I would have to agree that there are some thin pieces that you should be mindful of. Plenty of good, though. The sculpt is amazing. I love the design. It's probably what Beast Wars should have been, at least in my opinion. I understand that it comes from a Japanese magazine or something to that nature. They have a whole line of them coming. The hot rod looks particularly good to me. There's clicky ratchets everywhere. The hardware is fantastic. The engineering continues to be absolutely top shelf. I'm just going to go ahead and say it. They have the best engineering in third party, period. It's unique. It's interesting. It's thought-provoking. It's clever. It's relatively intuitive. And usually 9 times out of 10 anyway, fairly enjoyable and straightforward. Has a strong presence, it's fairly priced, cleans up like a champ in both modes, painted out the wazoo. Strong recommend from me. Thanks to Robert D for letting me take a look at it, and thanks for listening, thanks for watching. Until next time, take care.